and stuff, because as you know, I will consume all lore. All media will be consumed! We're starting with this. See what it's all about.
If you're starting to play Dungeons & Dragons and your Dungeon Master offers to run you through an official D&D adventure, you may want to know about the world that you will be inhabiting.
Yes, sir! That's what I'm all about. This is how we start. We start with the macro look, the great timeline, the greater world building. We move into the nuances. I've already gotten specific requests for Tiamat the Dragon God. So before we look into Tiamat the Dragon God, or Vecna, or any of these other goofballs that show up in this universe, we gotta actually absorb the universe and put it on our lore tier list, because all lore will be absorbed. If you like lore, if you like stories, media, fiction, drama, I consume all lore.
It behooves you because, just like with lore,
When you realize bloating and discomfort don't have to be routine, everything changes.
for the Rings, every time you consume that content, you will be in Middle-earth. And so
True. I did a lore dive on Middle-earth. That was actually kind of crazy. I didn't know about any of that Iluvatar Morgoth shit. So there's a whole lot of lore to consume. I need to do more Lord of the Rings lore. This actually reminds me.
So, knowing about Middle-earth makes that experience a lot better. Well, the very same thing applies to Dungeons & Dragons. Now, of course, your Dungeon Master may choose to run through an adventure set in another different place, but chances are, if you are consuming D&D content, this is the place you want to know.
Dude, I'm ready. Wait, so hold on. Oh, Baldur's Gate. Okay, so I know Baldur's Gate's D&D based, but it also takes place in the same Forgotten Realms universe. Because my experience with D&D is very limited. I've never played Baldur's Gate. I did watch one of the D&D movies. I've read a couple of the Forgotten Realms books. I used to play some Magic the Gathering, but like that's my experience with D&D lore. I am very, very blind on all this. Like I'll recognize some names and classes and shit, but that's about it.
If you want to play Baldur's Gate 3, if you want to watch the Dungeons & Dragons...
That's the one that I watched! The Honor Among Thieves one. I watched it on a plane. It was actually kind of good. I expected it to be dog ass, and it was actually pretty good.
movie Honor Among Thieves. If you want to read many of the popular...
That's the one that I read! This one! R.A. Salvador, the Drizzt novel. Oh my god, what the frick?
Dragons novels. If you want to purchase and play through most of the official Dungeons & Dragons campaigns,
Okay, I don't know what those are.
then you need to know that all of these things are set in one specific world.
That's
and that
crazy.
world is called the Forgotten Realms.
Wait, this isn't just like a universe like with similarities. All this stuff is actually canon to each other. Baldur's Gate and Honor Among Thieves and fucking Drizzt and like all this shit exists in the same world. Oh my god! I'm ready to cook. Let's fucking go. This is insane. Wow, this is a lot bigger than I expected.
Today, I'm going to talk about this world, specifically
Let's
about
go.
its timeline. I'm going to cover the most important events that have shaped this land to turn it into what it is today, so that hopefully you can have a better idea as to its grand history and why things are the way they are.
Let's go,
Specifically
dude.
Today, we're going to cover the beginning of this world's history,
shit.
all the way until the elves took over, which
Until the elves took over. Wait, are the elves like in charge right now? Like,
is a
Of course, the elves
huge
are
chunk of
right.
time. However, before we do that, this video is brought to you by Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons & Dragons, who have asked me
respect.
to let you all know how easy it is to play D&D, even if you have never done so before. In fact, it is now easier than ever. I play a lot with new
Holy shit, maybe I'm gonna start playing D. Am I gonna actually get into D&D? Because dude, well, I do lore dives, and whenever the lore like really grabs me, I end up venturing further into the fandom. Like, dude, I actually am probably gonna read the Darth Plagueis book because of my Star Wars lore dives. And I actually have become a massive fan of Warhammer to the degree.
Testing, 1, 2. Welcome to our house. I'm Aaron, and this is...
I'm Lawrence.
This is my beautiful husband.
So happy to have you guys.
We have technically lived here for about 6 years.
On and off, yeah.
And we've been using trusted house sitters for, I don't know, 3?
4.
4 of those years. Yeah, 4. So this is one of my favourite little spots in the house.
It's got tons of different textures and metal finishes.
It's really pretty. We've had 6 sitters stay with us now. They're usually travelling or looking for a getaway. But at the same time, they want those home comforts. We have a little joke that we offer a 5-star service.
Cuddles, comfort, and charm.
We'd rather be in our home than with a neighbour.
That I am actually gonna play all the games probably. Like, these lore dives are changing me.
players. and they're often intimidated about learning all of the rules, picking their race and classes, or just simply getting started. But all it takes is one session for every new player to realize just how easy it is. All you need is the player's handbook. You literally don't need anything else, and you can get it super cheap from Amazon for about 27 bucks.
Damn.
And this little book alone.
I thought this would be like something impossible to get into. So here's the thing. Rustage invited me to a bunch of D&D campaigns over the years, and I never actually did any of that because I never had time. I don't know how the fuck I'm gonna do this. Oh god, I will consume all lore though. I'm making it my job. It is my duty. My job is to consume all lore. Subscribe if you like lore.
And will take you through countless adventures and will be the greatest investment that you will ever make in your life. Okay, maybe you also need a few dice to play, but that's it. For me and other new players, the biggest hurdle was typically just finding a group to play, but with the advent of virtual tabletops, finding a group has never been easier. At first, I recommend going over to the official Dungeons & Dragons Discord server. They have a system in there where you can very easily apply to join games with others. Plus, you can ask questions in there if you want to learn more about the game, or if you're not sure about where to go. I personally, I love finding new players to play with, and I found half of my current party just using the Discord, so I...
Oh my god, am I actually gonna fucking fall into this rabbit hole?
Definitely recommend it. However, my personal favorite way to find a game is honestly Roll20. Roll20 is a virtual tabletop where people, play Dungeons & Dragons online. It's actually one of the many places in which you can do so, but what I like about it to find groups is that it has a really good system for finding them. You go right here to games, and then on the drop-down menu, you go into join a game. And then here, you will see immediately dozens and dozens of games currently being played.
That's so sick. It's crazy big community.
You can go and apply to them directly just right here using this website. It's pretty easy. And as soon as you find a group, that will take you...
All right, gotcha. I'll get back there. Back to the lore. Let's do the lore, please. Lore.
Toril. Now, this here is the planet that we are going to be talking about. Its name is Aber Toril.
Okay, so first thing to note, unlike Middle Earth in Lord of the Rings, this is not a flat Earth. It's an actual planet. Huge dub. We fucking take those. Let's go.
Now, the reason why the planet has two names will become apparent later, but for now, know that the planet is under an ice age as of the beginning.
Wait, now meaning at the beginning of time, at the beginning of recorded history.
Of this story. Whatever happened before the Ice Age is mythical history, and it's completely up to the interpretation of gods as to what exactly transpired.
Wait. Of gods? Like gods? Like there are gods in this? Okay.
Many races have, of course, their own mythological origin story for the planet, and of course,
This goes so deep that the different races have different Genesis theories? Oh my god, this goes far. Holy shit.
All differ in many, many ways, but they all agree on one thing.
All right.
There was a massive war between two different groups, the gods and the primordials. Now what?
Okay, so gods are not all powerful here. They're just a group of like really powerful beings.
What exactly are gods and what are the falls outside of the scope of this video, but you can consider gods to be entities.
All right, we'll get there. Oh god, we gotta do a god lore dive. There's so much.
Manifested by the hopes, dreams, angers, fears, and all kinds of emotions.
Of giant flying white people.
Wishes of living entities, made manifest by the same energies that created the multiverse. And then you can consider the primordials to be the raw amalgamation of the elements, creatures that have existed beyond time.
Oh my god, I didn't think this went this far back. I thought it was just about like dwarves and elves and shit. Oh my god.
What happens when you put
Dude, sometimes when I dive into like a fandom, it just impresses the shit out of me. Like, it really does. Like, Warhammer, I think, was definitely the most impressive. Like, with how far back it went. 60 million year old history. This is crazy.
All elements or power together, and then it grows a sentience. But regardless of whatever transpired during this ancient mythological conflict, the world was now encased in ice, and whatever existed on this planet before this ice was now dead and
the Void Century.
Long forgotten.
Welcome to Dwarven Forge. This is everything you need to know about our terrain in 60 seconds. Ready? Let's go. We hand sculpt our pieces for maximum detail and artistry, infusing passion into...
Ice eventually receded. It revealed a single big megacontinent called Ouroboros,
which is basically Pangea in our modern world, right?
Over time, the first sentient species started to develop in this new continent, and those first species we call the creator races.
The creator races. So I suppose they're kind of extinct now. Otherwise, they would be called like the elves or whatever. But these original, like that's like the Neanderthal type people, I guess.
Of these races, we have the Sorok, which are reptilian and snake-like, the Batrachi, which were amphibian, the Eri, which were avian, the Fae, which we actually don't know much about how they used to be back then.
Wait, the Fae is like the Fae dimension in Vox Machina? Like they're in like living in a whole alternate reality?
And then the humans, which were primitive ape-like creatures.
So, mammals, birds, reptiles, and amphibians, and fairies. And these were the original races that kind of evolved into, I guess, the modern races of the D&D universe?
The first species to dominate were the Soroks, which were granted tremendous knowledge and power by a mysterious deity called the World Serpent. It is said that by
Oh,
the time...
shit! Wait, the World Serpent stems from D&D? No. What? Like, everything takes inspiration from this shit. Okay, wait. The World Serpent. This can't just be D&D. Oh, it's Jormungandr. It's, they take it from Norse mythology. Okay, the World Serpent. Okay, alright.
This god
Opposite way, got it.
approached them, the Soroks were nothing more than savages in these wild, untamed lands. However, this god offered them the knowledge of magic and how to smith tools and weapons.
shit.
And all it asked in return was obedience and many blood sacrifices, which...
Alright, well, just you know, average religion, you know what I'm saying? No, that was a joke. But, okay, so they got dominance because they managed to attach themselves to a god and obtain magic.
The Soroks happily obliged and used
Easy, just some blood sacrifices for power and magic? Fuck yeah!
using the knowledge granted by the World Serpent, the Soroks conquered the world and
Oh,
entered
what
the
the fuck?
greatest kingdom that this planet will ever see.
What do you mean, will ever see? Wait, it never reaches this height again?
Even to this day, it is believed that their kingdom literally spanned the entire planet.
Holy shit.
Now, during the climax of their rise to power, they came up with the idea to consolidate every single bit of learned magical knowledge into one single magical item. They effectively traveled throughout the entire kingdom, which at the time was the whole planet, and grabbed every single bit of magical knowledge, every spell created, every technique for how to craft items, everything that related to magic, and recorded it into a series of magical scrolls. These scrolls would end up becoming the most powerful magical item in the history of the Forgotten Realms.
That's insane. So these guys actually ruled the world. They were the superpower. So technically, the modern era of D&D is like almost a post-apocalypse for these fuckers.
Of course, not as strong as some of the artifacts that may have been created by gods and span the multiverse, but in terms of magical items like
He just says that so casually.
created by mortals here on this planet, these are the most powerful.
Okay, so all modern day spells, not magic artifacts, just the basic magic, like informational magic, intellectual magic, all that stems from these snake fuckers.
We call these the Nether Scrolls. Now, what makes these scrolls so particularly powerful and effective at teaching magic is that the content of the scrolls appears before you as you attempt to read it, and the content tailors
Oh, that's some Kung Fu Panda shit.
itself to you so that every time you read
I am the Dragon Warrior.
an individual scroll, you will always learn something new with seemingly no limit to how much information a single scroll may contain.
That's such a cool power system. Nether Scrolls.
But then through war, civil strife, and perhaps maybe even fate, the scrolls would inevitably be lost as the empire of the Soroks would eventually fail, and its pages would find themselves scattered all across the planet.
But why did it fail? Like, how does such a powerful super civilization spanning the entire planet fail? Was it internal strife? Was there some sort of external force?
Found by different societies and peoples throughout history. It is believed that the vast majority of all magic cast today in the world of the Forgotten Realms can be somehow traced back to the Nether Scrolls in one way or another.
That's so fucking cool. So it's like magic is almost like some sort of archaic system that we have from a complete, in another video they explain how they fell. All right, this is the overview, all right? So it seems like magic is an archaic system mastered by these Sorok, and now in the modern day, we are doing our best to kind of put together this information that was gathered so long ago by a super civilization that has previously fallen. Like, that's a really interesting perspective. Like, that's such a cool way to build the world.
In any case, the Empire of the Zoroks collapsed in what you may call something of a crisis of faith. See, gods are made powerful.
Slanesh style? What? Crisis of faith? What, they stop feeding the world serpent?
By the veneration of mortals and gods.
Chat, stop saying wood. They're snake people.
Gods can be created and destroyed with enough faith or lack thereof. Because the Empire of the Zoroks was all-encompassing, the veneration of the world serpent was mandatory within the Empire. Every single species that existed at the time had to pray to this god. However, a species had its own wants and desires.
So this was ultimately the god of the planet at that point.
Wishes, dreams, and fears. The world serpent was forced to become this entity that was oftentimes contradictory, being a god of tyranny and enslavement for the Zoroks, but then a god of freedom and choice for some of the disenfranchised enslaved races. The world serpent was then forced to sort of split into multiple personalities, multiple deities within one. Some fragments which ended up fighting against each other, which of course furthered that civil strife within the empire.
Okay, so basically, it seems like gods in this world are definitely molded by their venerators in some way. So, by the fact that this became such a big super civilization that encompassed everybody, ultimately people and these different regular races, not the gods, they would change. And their veneration and worship of the snake would cause some sort of, you know, multiple personality disorder in a god. Like, actual mental illness destroyed this civilization. Holy shit.
This was compounded by the increasing reliance on slaves by the Empire to the point where the Yuan-Ti, which were a snake-like creation of the Zoroks, basically manned the entire empire. They were the war masters, the diplomats, the shopkeepers.
They fucking cooked. Okay, Chat, I see what you're saying. Chat, you made a good argument. Chat, I'm starting to respect you a little bit more.
The construction workers, the servants, and the guards. Anything and everything that could be delegated to the Yuan-Ti was delegated to the Yuan-Ti, while the Zoroks simply lived a life of hedonism until eventually...
Bro, this is actual Slaneshian shit! They became so... Dude, this is just the downfall of every civilization. Even if a civilization does maintain complacency in its world, it'll continue to grow and grow and grow and grow in complacency and in comfort, while the oppressed people will continue to get more and more oppressed. The people at the top of the food chain and the dissonance between them and the people at the bottom will always continue to grow. It'll always end in degeneracy and debauchery. And the governing rule class will suffer from like this late stage capitalism, for lack of a better word, and they'll fucking implode at some point. Like, every empire will collapse. Civilization has a time limit.
The empire sort of slowly weakened and collapsed into pieces throughout the next set of 1,000 years. And as the Yuan-Ti slowly started taking over these cities as the new masters, the Batrachi started gaining more and more power and slowly became the new overlords of the world. But the power vacuum that the Zoroks had left began emboldening many different species within the world.
Yes. Of course, because taking out a great power does not end war. It just makes a lot of little wars.
Including the giants and the titans that existed in the north, which started a massive war against the Batrachi. Now,
Oh, they're not extinct, they're just a smaller clan. They're just smaller clans all over the world. Yeah, but they're not a super civilization anymore.
This war between the Batrachi and the Titans was being won by the Titans, and so, now forced against a wall, the Batrachi decided to up the stakes. See, deities at this point in time had been fairly present in the world. The World Serpent had granted so much power before to the Zoroks, and the Titans at this point in time as well had their own god, Anam the All-Father, which blessed his...
The All-Father. Wait, so a lot of the god shit in D&D is heavily based off Norse mythology, it seems.
Children with might and power, and the Batrachi, on the other hand, as powerful spellcasters as they were, they did not have such divine support, and so they upped their ante and put their cards on the other side, so to speak. The Batrachi started developing profane rituals in order to summon and free many of the primordials, which had been imprisoned in
Oh my god, they undid the sealing jutsus on ancient demons! Oh my god, that's what, you push them to a wall and they fucking go crazy on your ass. Oh my god.
War between the gods and the primordials. Now, exactly who was freed and how the war continued is still fairly unknown, and there's many different interpretations of how exactly things unfolded after this. Because as soon as many primordials started walking the planet, many deities suddenly got involved again. And
Yeah, no shit. No shit they're gonna show up. Like, bro, the gods' ancient enemies that crafted the universe, alright, are back. Because some fucking snake guys were getting ass whooped by titans. Oh my god.
and also walked the planet as well, fighting them. Then afterwards, it is believed that one particular primordial, Asgarath, a draconic entity, decided to use its unimaginable power to sling a titanic moon or asteroid right onto the planet.
What the fuck? This Asgarath bitch dropped a fucking meteor? Bro thinks he's Madara for real, for real.
Whether it did this to end the war or kill some deities or to destroy the planet, it's a bit unclear, but the event is called the Tearfall. When the asteroid fell into the planet, it effectively shattered the land, creating what we now call the Sea of Fallen Stars, which nowadays rests here. Now the result
It's so cool how it changes the landmass. Oh my god, there's so much. I'm starting to goon.
The apocalypse that fell upon the world after the Tearfall completely destroyed the Batrachi civilization.
Yeah, rip Batrachis. You guys did good for a minute there, but yikes.
Many of them were forced to use
You ended up waking up a dragon god that dropped the fucking moon on you. Born to goon. It's over.
their powerful magics to abandon the planet and move towards other astral realities. Some others were forced to live underwater, eventually devolving into many of the amphibian monstrous races that we see today.
Oh my god, dude. And this is thousands of years ago. They fucking changed their actual physiology changed and was contorted because they were stuck in these underwater cavernous places.
But most of them simply died, and so the Batrachi, as we know them, basically just went extinct.
Yeah, so turns out Big Dragon Guy genocided the little guys. Classic.
Now, the Forgotten Realms has one entity which we call the Overgod. We really know nothing
That's so cool.
about this individual other than the fact that he sort of rules over all of the gods and the primordials. He's sort of above all, but he doesn't really act. He behaves as an observer.
So this is basically God, right? This over God. This is just the God. God. The guy that's actually kind of in charge, all powerful, doesn't really get involved as far as we know. All right.
Basically. At least on most occasions, he only seems to act when he's forced to, and the events that resulted in the Tearfall forced his hand. This overgod, which we know is called Ao, decided to separate the planet into two forms. One which would be called Aber, and the other which would be called Toril.
No, that's why the planet has two names.
Aber was given to the primordials, while Toril was given to the gods.
Yo, so the gods and the primordials are literally in different geolocations, which is why the world isn't currently in complete shambles, because the overgod divided them that way. Like, actually just said, okay, all right, you know, and you're sitting you and your brother are fighting in public, and your dad just puts one of you on one side of him, and then he puts the other one on the other side. He's like, no more fighting. That's what the overgod did to the gods and the primordials.
And so, in this form, the war between the gods and the primordials would now finally cease. Now, the Forgotten Realms focuses almost exclusively on Toril and not on Aber, so we're not really going to cover Aber at all from now on.
No matter what type of severe asthma you have, Tespire can help you have fewer attacks and relieve.
Also
Alright.
know that after the
So Toril's the one is the one with the gods, not the primordials, right?
Tearfall, the supercontinent that was Miroboros was sort of split into now multiple continents. Further, the planet was also changed a bit when Ao separated it into two whole beings. Further, there are some events that will transpire later that will also
It looks a lot like planet Earth. I don't know. That kind of looks like North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, you know, Australia, right?
shifted. But basically, this is how the planet looks now, and roughly has maintained this shape throughout the rest of its history. Now, there are books that cover most of these locations and continents, but honestly, about 100% of the content that you will be experiencing from Dungeons & Dragons will be set in this continent, which
So this is not just like a world. This is an insanely massive world. This planet is way bigger than ours. 99% of D&D happens in one continent on half the world. Bro!
which we call Faerun. So from here on out,
And just, you gotta think about what the snake people control. They controlled this entire planet.
for the rest of the video, we will focus on this particular continent. Now, something very interesting transpired.
And there are other dimensions and realms and planes of existence, and there's like the Underdark and shit. Oh my god, it's so big.
Again, whether this was intended from Askarath or not, it turned out that dragons started appearing in the world. Many creation myths actually state that the moon that Askarath plummeted onto the planet was in fact filled
Not a giant egg.
to the brim with draconic eggs.
Oh my god, wait, so there's space too? Are there aliens in D&D? I'm sorry, I'm gooning. I'm gooning over the size and breadth and history of this world. Oh my glob. So that's how dragons got introduced.
Which detached from the moon and then fell like tiny meteorites all over the planet. And so, from this moment on, dragons would start appearing and, of course, start
The dragons are aliens.
changing the fate of the world. It would only take 1,000 years or so before all of these dragons would start becoming adult and ancient dragons, powerful enough to shatter any semblance of status quo among the
God.
currently existing civilizations.
Holy shit. So dragons are not to be trifled with. They are fucking insanely broken in D&D. I mean, we see in Vox Machina how dangerous these fuckers are.
UNT were forced to retreat into their cities, losing to the awe-inspiring might of dragons. Similarly, the Aerie would easily fall to the dragons as well, previously being able to resist domination by the other creator races thanks to their ability to fly and build kingdoms in far-fetched locations, but now they could no longer hide, as dragons could fly as well and match them very...
These dragons, what the fuck? This one dude drops a meteor, ends a civilization, stops a war, splits the planet, dragons show up, they could fly, they could run, they're strong as balls. Yikes, how are dragons not just completely ruling the Forgotten Realms right now? How are they not just literally the apex predator?
Easily in the air. A draconic superiority on the mainland was undisputed, except for one species that stood above the rest. The one species that had stood against the previous master of the world. The Titans and the Giants of
Wait, so the Titans and the Giants were able to fight the dragons,
the
damn.
north. Unlike the UNT and the Aerie, who were puny compared to the dragons, the
Yo.
Titans were actually a match for them, both in
Oh my god, I didn't know the Titans were this strong.
size and in magical might. At the time, the Titans were at their apex in their kingdom that they called Ostoria, also called the Colossal Kingdom, which did spread quite far in the world. The dragons, of course, also were expanding quite rapidly, building their own cities and kingdoms. And so the inevitable clash between the two groups of
Dude, how do the humans even have any form of power in this world? I don't know. The more I look into this history right now, it just makes me wonder how we got to today, right? Like, bro, you got fucking halflings walking around and humans and, like, dude, look at this shit. Look at these guys. These are titans fighting dragons. Like, this is not even remotely, like, how did this end up?
wars would come. However, it would last for at least 4,000 to 6,000 years
Oh my God.
before it would reach its conclusion. It was a brutal and bloody conflict. The two titanic races fighting against one another. It was so bad that this hatred that they had for each other would become a generational, almost foundational principle of the two.
Bro, so titans and dragons are just, like, hugely racist against each other because of a 6,000-year war? And that's just never gonna leave these two races?
That these two species would have
That's such a good way to introduce character dynamics, because you always have like these characters that have beef on sight, you know? It's like the like you always have these characters. It's like, oh, you're from this clan, oh, you're from that clan. But like this actually puts generational hatred into perspective. Like this is canon racism to a T.
against the other. Even to this day, this hatred still runs in their blood. Giants hate dragons, and dragons hate them back. Now, many things happened during this time. See, during the Dragon and Giant War, the other races...
the dragon giant drama is insane, guys.
Of the world finally got a chance to thrive on scene. Frankly, neither dragons nor the giants had any time to invest in subjugating any of the other races. They were frankly too puny and weak for them to work.
Let's go! Being puny and weak has finally been a W. Let's go, gamers! Puny and weak gamers, rise up! They didn't give a shit about us!
The humans at the time were still in their infancy, not really ready to take over the world yet.
Yeah.
Instead, the ones who would start taking advantage of the spirit of instability were the elves. See, we didn't really talk about one of the creator races. We sort of just brushed them aside, but the Fae do have a part to play in this story. See, the story goes that the Fae left the planet quite early on to go
to their Fae realm.
Onto the Feywild.
Let's go, baby! So the Feywild, from my understanding, was another dimension, right? It's on the same planet, sort of. It's just in another dimension, like another plane of existence. And they've kind of been just doing their own thing there.
This transitory adjacent realm that existed perpendicular to a planetary echo, if you will.
Dude, it's so crazy to think that, like, dude, this planet is so big. It's such a big planet with multiple continents split in half. There are parts ruled by gods, part ruled by primordials, and instead of just being like, oh, they lived in another country, they're like, oh, they lived in an alternate dimension. Let's just add a whole level of depth to this world that you didn't even know existed. It makes sense that all the D&D campaigns happen in here because there's literally so much. It's so big.
What exactly is the Feywild? Again, does fall beyond the scope of this video, but the Fae made their kingdoms on this realm that bordered the material plane. And
nice.
at this moment in the history of the planet, the Fae started opening portals from the Feywild and into Toril. And through these portals came the very first elves, creatures that had grown and evolved from the Feywild, who took advantage of the portals being opened in order to explore the world beyond. And so
Wait, so they were able to actually just evolve in culture and in, physiology without being disturbed, right? Like, imagine if you're a human, okay, and you're living in a world that's ruled by lizard people, fought with titans, magic primordials show up, dragon meteors fall from the sky, dragons and the titans are fighting now, and you're just a human. You're just trying to get fucking by. You're trying to plant your corn and eat it, okay? You don't want to deal with any of this shit. And meanwhile, the elves have had all this time to literally grow and evolve personally in an alternate universe where they could just literally come in and drop their dick on the table and rub their balls on the faces of every other generation.
So, did the first elves make it onto the planet? Now, it did take quite a while for these elves to set up and start
Damn, bro. The elves, am I right?
Understanding the world and their magic. Again, this war between the dragons and the giants lasted for many thousands of years. And throughout this war, the dragons would cripple and limit the ability for elves and some of the other species to be able to really expand throughout the world. Now, I don't fully have the time here to delve.
Hey! That's a Magic the Gathering card. I know that guy. That's the frog guy with trample. He's like a 7/7 or some shit.
Into every single species that existed at this moment, but do know.
Sorry, we gotta do it, right? I'm not making that up. That's actually a dude. Like, I'm telling you, that's like a guy, a frog guy from Magic the Gathering. Right, we're doing some print screening to recognize this shit. Like I'm telling you, man. Search by image. I'm telling you, man. It's the frog guy. It's Frog Hemeth. It's Frog Hemeth guy. I found him. I found Frog Hemeth. It's a real dude. Holy shit. Wait, so this is technically D&D? This is a D&D creature? Oh my god, that's so cool.
The time here to delve into every single species that existed at this moment, but do know that there were a fair amount of them by now.
Alright, we gotta do so much diving. We gotta do Magic the Gathering deep dive.
Told, for example, that one of the creator races had already opened up a portal in the mountains of the north, and from that portal came the first orcs, who were savage monsters suitable for warfare. We also know that the dwarves had spawned from the cavernous bowels of the planet and lived under the ground unmolested for millennia.
Holy shit, there's so much. Holy shit, there's so much. Oh my god, there's so much. I can't believe it.
We also had creatures like Nagas who were created by the UNT. We had halflings who always existed in the shadows of other races and never really accomplished anything grand. And of course, we have goblinoids and ogres and the like. But all in all...
Okay, so there's basically every single fantasy creature in existence is a race that exists in D&D.
The dragons proved quite...
And they probably all have their own history and backstories and shit.
It's superior to everyone else including the Titans. But they suffered from a massive rupture within their ranks, as unlike the unified deific pantheons of the giants, the gods of the dragons were split. This can happen when the gods that form a religious pantheon have no obvious true leader, but instead are a collection of powerful but equal gods.
So is that how the dragons fall? The same way the snake people fall? Because they eventually have too many god deities fighting in their own heads?
See, Anum, the All-Father, is the undisputed leader that governs the gods of the giants. He is the most powerful, and all of the gods under him just simply do as he says. And in turn, all titans and giants simply follow his commands. This was not true for dragons.
Damn, bro. It's pantheism versus monotheism. And since all of the titans believed in the All-Father, the titans ended up having a religious advantage, a spiritual advantage.
Who are by nature more individualistic. So what followed were the Holy Draco Wars.
Bro.
Where religion...
Dragon civil wars fighting over religion? How do you make this up? How is there so much?
Factions within the Draconic Empire started forming, and then, of course, fought each other. See, back then, dragons were incredibly religious. In fact, the main reason that they had even fought against the giants and the titans in the first place was because they were ushered to do so by the gods. Really, it was just a beef between the giant gods and the dragon gods that forced both groups to fight. Now, some of these religious...
Classic religious wars, am I right, guys? Dragon racism is wild. Dragon racism goes crazy.
This were centered around what exactly was Askarath, and what exactly did Askarath want for the dragons. Other fights started because the new dragon gods were being spawned, and the younger generations of dragons were...
Bro, did they rip that giant dragon's head off? That's scary.
Venerating them, while the older generations were sticking to the ancient gods. And then, of course, came Bahamut and Tiamat, who ended up becoming the most popular of...
I've heard of both of those guys. There's an anime, Rage of Bahamut. Is that in the D&D universe?
Of the new brand of gods that were being created. Deities who hated each other and spurned their children to fight one another in their name. In summary...
So the deities are not like all-powerful good dudes, right? The deities are very powerful creatures that exist within different religions. Like the All-Father is a very real creature, not just something abstract that's being prayed to in some sort of warp or some shit. Yo, that's pretty interesting, honestly. Like that's a very interesting way to create gods. Gods as like existent. They exist in the corporeal plane as just the pinnacle of their species.
The dragons effectively crippled the empire of the giants and the titans, pushing them all the way to the north and almost destroying them in total, while their draconic empire weakened itself thanks to infighting and in the end forming two major factions of dragons. The Chromatics, which were the black, blue, white, red, and green, versus the Metallics, which were the gold, silver, bronze, copper, and brass.
That's so wild! They are racists. Holy shit. They just judge each other by their skin color. The chromatics and the metallics. The regular colors versus the metallic looking guys. That's crazy. So originally it was like a whole bunch of different races fighting each other, and then they're like, nah, bro. Our hatred for you is more than our hatred for our brothers.
Dragons. Eventually they did realize that religious fervor had caused their empire to crumble, and they did abandon their gods, but by that point, the empire had grown weak enough for the elves to strike.
Oh shit, dude. And then infighting among the dragons, who I guess they felt like they were too big to fail, right? They felt like they were just too strong. When you don't care about other people, you start fighting with each other. Damn.
This would be the point where elves would take on a primary role on the world, and it would all start with a massive high elven spell that they would unleash upon the dragons. Before I go about what exactly that spell did,
Looking to continue your journey? The University of Alaska Anchorage can help. UAA is a leading workforce provider with over 100 programs and an array of in-person, online, and hybrid courses to choose from. Want to make your impact? Apply today.
Everywhere I go, every smile I see, I know you are there, smiling back at me, dancing in moonlight. I know you are me.
we should probably talk about magic in this world.
Okay. So how did the elves get if you think about it though, how did the elves get magic? Because those nether scrolls are not in the Fey realm, I would think.
The magic of this world comes from what we call the weave. And the weave is this invisible force that exists everywhere, like a fabric that touches every living being.
Dude, actual magic system is getting explained finally.
Every rock, every fiber, every tree, and every grain of sand on the planet.
So this is some warp force shit.
When you cast a spell, you're grabbing a huge chunk of this weave and then brutally shifting it into a desired shape before you release it into your desired outcome. What spells are just ways in which you grab the weave and twist it to form shapes, but it's not a perfect science. The spell...
So it's kind of like the Force, except instead of just like, you know, pushing, pulling, and stuff like that, it's the Force that also can create entities in actual space, in physical space, can be created because everything houses this weave. It's almost like the weave is a pantheistic god in some way. All right, interesting. I like it. Fits. Makes sense, cool. Binds the galaxy together. Power 1, power 2, power many, you know what I'm saying?
Those are really just approximations to desired outcomes. Let's do a thought experiment. Imagine a tranquil river that passes by a field. Now imagine that you want to water a beautiful flower that is about 10 feet away from the river. Casting a magic...
Bro, that's a butt. That's a whole ass. That is a whole ass coming out of that river.
Spell would be like grabbing a big chunk of water with your fist and then walking over to the flower and dropping the water on top of it. Doing it in this way is kind of crude. It's wasteful. Much of the water would seep out from your fists as you would try and grab it, and then some of it would also fall into the ground on your way to the flower. And then when you drop the water into the flower, it would drop in this kind of random shape and form, and it might damage the flower on the impact if you do drop too much water. However, doing it like this is fast, it's convenient, it's easy. Anyone can...
Ah, shit. So there are two ways to utilize magic. There's the much more pinpoint accurate, difficult way, which is the most, you know, beneficial, and there's the easy, fast version, a sloppy way.
Do it. And this is how everyone has been casting magic up until now. The elves come from a different place, a place where abusing nature, abusing the world, and abusing magic is kind of frowned upon, especially so because in the Feywild, well, you could consider sometimes the land itself to be alive. But regardless, the elves were a lot more delicate with their magic. They were a lot more refined with their magic. And so...
Dude, this was such a good fucking analogy. Oh my god, this was literally such a good analogy.
So with the help of their god, Corellon Larethian, they devised a different way to cast magic.
Alright.
Elvish high magic. This type of magic is extremely complicated. It's basically ritual magic. It takes a very, very long time to cast, oftentimes requires multiple casters working together at the same time, and that's only after many, many years of preparation. Some Elvish high magics require centuries to learn. This is why other races never really managed to learn this type of magic.
Yeah, because these elves live for 1,000 years! They're 1,000-year-olds that have practiced this shit, and they have become precise fucking magic surgeons, respecting the magic and not just crudely using it.
It just takes so long to learn and requires a cohesive group of casters.
Dude, honestly, this is such a good way to explain how the elves were able to take dominance, right? If you think about it, the humans who do not have this longevity, like, and have always been these little guys underfoot of these titans and these dragons and these wars and these fighting, the elves have literally, like a fucking cult, existed in this Fey realm, evolving, learning, studying, perfecting their craft, living for thousands of years. And it goes to show how they actually did approach dominance in this world.
All working together.
They're the shadow government here.
Symbiotically to be able to be used. Now, let's go back to our river example. Whereas casting normal spells would be the equivalent of grabbing water from the river with your own fists, Elvish high magic would be the equivalent of, say, carefully digging a small trench that leads the water from the river directly towards the flower.
Damn.
You know, it takes a long time to do.
But it's irrigation. That's the difference. Instead of just grabbing a handful of water, you actually irrigate the field. It takes a while, but it's so much more precise and effective.
There's a lot of effort, might require a lot of help, and if you don't finish it, it was all wasted. You don't accomplish anything after all if the trench doesn't actually get to the flower. But it's permanent. You don't have to water the flower anymore, it's done. forever. Further, if someone wanted to undo this effect, it would be really hard. You would have to start filling up the trench with more dirt, but that might leave patches of magic stranded in ponds. Also, there is a chance of
Dude, this is such a crazy analogy to explain this. Yo, it's so complex and it fits so well with each other. Like, it makes sense. It goes to show how the elves mastered this shit.
catastrophic consequences. The water might completely drown the flower. The locations where you dug up the trench are basically unusable now. And if you reroute the river water too much, you might dry out certain locations on the river, creating untold chaos. All in all, Elvish High Magic is unbelievably potent and can accomplish things that people could only dream of, but it's very dangerous and can harm the world in a permanent way.
Yikes. So the elves are kind of fucked up in their own way, I guess. Like, yo, that's a really scary concept, right? Like, because they don't know exactly how they'll fuck up the world. Like, they can actually mold the world in their own image here.
Well, at the time,
Like, they could become actual racist tyrants very easily just because they feel like they are more attached to God and nature and the world than anyone else. Like, damn. Like, you could see why they would look down at the meager, archaic races that fucking grab globs of magic out of the universe when they fucking create this pond.
the dragons were a problem, and the elves sought a solution. The elves devised a
Is that why there's no more dragons? Do the elves just fucking curse them into oblivion?
high magic spell called the Draco Rage Mythal. And the spell was tied to a star called the King Killer Star, which is basically a comet that becomes visible on the planet rarely every once in a while. The way the spell was formulated was such that every time that this comet would be visible from the planet, its magic would activate and its magic would make all dragons go mad.
That's insane. That's their solution? That's their solution. By taking an intelligent species and just driving it to ebbing and flowing madness. Madness that rises like the star is visible in the sky, completely and forever, unable to form some sort of positive society. It's a society that's inevitably gonna constantly crumble for eternity. They fucked the dragon's future. That is like an actual, like, that's a borderline genocide. Like, they removed their sentience from them. And you know what? They're like, these dragons, they don't respect nature, they don't respect the world, they're, you know, primitive and evil and powerful and dangerous, and let's just fucking cuck them for eternity. And now they're monsters. Now the dragons in modern D&D are monsters. They're these giant monsters that it's like, if you can kill a dragon, then you did fucking good job. Because, like, holy crap, they're strong and they're just creatures of madness because of these elves. Oh my, that is some of the darkest storytelling I've ever seen.
Quote, after years of secret research in the frozen north of Faerun and extensive debate about the costs and risks, the elves weaved the Draco Rage Mythal, a permanent crafting of elvish high magic and one of the most powerful spells ever woven into the weave. This epic...
So they changed reality. So I think another big difference between regular magic and elf magic, aside from all the nuances, magic takes things from an unreality and puts it into reality for a moment, right? Like, it makes transient magic versus permanent magic. Like, they alter reality with elven high magic. Not just, you know, I cast fireball, I cast mend butt crack. They actually change how reality works.
Spell made it impossible for Dragonkind to continue its collective dominion over Faerun.
Dominion? It stopped Dragonkind from ever evolving or surviving. This is insane!
The Draco Rage Mythal caused all dragons, including those of type dragon and creatures with the dragon blood subtype, to become reckless and run amok across their lands, slaughtering their young and vassals and destroying all in their wake. But it also gave the fair folk the opportunity to break...
Okay, bro, this is just an image from Name of the Wind. Great book. Has nothing to do with D&D.
...free of dragon rule, marking the denouement of the reign of dragons. As a result of this ancient curse, dragons have periodically gone berserk, rampaging across the realms.
It's tragic. They were like the world power. They were the world power. They were religious leaders, right? They were arguing over religion and philosophy. And they just became these bungling monsters They just gave all of them dragon rabies. He just lobotomized a species.
Like some sort of disease, the so-called Draco Rage,
This is tragic. I'm actually heartbroken. This is so sad.
sometimes also known as the Dragon Rage or simply the Rage, lays dormant, erupting forth every several decades or even few centuries, and even seemingly associated with the reappearance of the King Killer's star.
Dude, and just every once in a while, the fucking star rises in the sky and instant brain rot.
Actually a bright red comet that winks like a baleful eye, to infect dragons for several 10 days at a time. And this is, in some ways, one of the cruelest curses that has ever been wrought in the history of this planet. And from the moment that this Draco...
Dude, don't fuck with the elves. Do not fuck with the elves. What do you even do? They just sit in their freaking Fey realm crafting some sort of insane bullshit spell for 1,000 years and just show up and cuck you and all your descendants? Like, this is insane. They're tyrants. They're gonna be mad with power. There's no way they could possibly respect another race.
Rage mythol was created, dragons would never be able to construct or hold cities or have any semblance of society on this planet.
They can no longer ever have a civilization. Ever! And the dragons know this is imagine living a life like this. You know that one day the fucking star is gonna come out of the sky and drive you to madness. And you'll murder all the people around you. Like, this is such a cruel thing. Wow!
Ever again. Because every single time that this star would show up in the night sky, dragons would be driven onto madness to devour their very own children.
Oh my god, dude. Oh my god.
To destroy the buildings that they have constructed, the cities that they have built, and slaughter any friends that they may have within reach. This destroyed dragons as a civilization forevermore. And upon the swift and
that's why all the dragons are fucking hanging out in caves and shit, just doing their own thing. Because, like, what, they're gonna make friends that they're just gonna murder in their haze of madness if the star comes out? Oh my god, that's brutal.
universal destruction of their civilization, the elves
They took over the world.
rose up to claim the land for themselves. This epoch in time now we call the First Flowering, which was essentially the spreading and the domination of elves across the land.
Insane.
Many enormous kingdoms were made by all of the very different kinds of elves that existed at this moment, from the green elves to the sun elves, the dark elves, and moon elves.
Oh, so the Dark Elves also came from this Fey realm at this time, and I guess they just populated the Underdark instead of populating the regular world.
And then we would have the Crown Wars, which were the resulting battles and the wars between the elves.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you know what'll fuck with the elves the most? Elves! They can't fucking weave anti-elf shit into the sky.
Now, this whole period is very
So every elf is from this Fey realm. After they wiped out the dragons, they literally took over the world because they were the superior fighting force, because the entire world was ravaged by these dragons, and there was a power vacuum. So the elves show up, they fuck over everyone, they take over the world, and then, because there's so many of them, they all fight and have these internal conflicts with each other. Oh my god.
longer than the rest, actually. To put it into perspective, our story started in minus 35,000 DR. When the Ice Age ended. A DR is kind of like the Jesus moment of history, where modern civilizations started using that moment in time to start counting years forward. I will explain, of course, what that moment is once we get to year 0. But basically, everything that we have talked about so far lasted about 9,000 years. And the rise and fall of the Seracs and the subsequent rise of the Batrashi up until the moment that they summoned Primordial and the Tearfall falls onto the planet. That whole section of history is called the Days of Thunder and go from minus 35,000 DR to minus 30,000 DR. Then the rise and fall of both of the Titans and the Dragons comprise what we now call the Dawn Age, which goes...
Okay, so Days of Thunder, Primordials versus Gods. Dawn Age, Dragons versus Titans.
From minus 30,000 DR to minus 24,000 DR. And this age, the time of the elves, both the First Flowering and the Crown Wars, go all the way from minus 24,000 DR to minus 9,000 DRs.
Oh shit! 15,000 years of elf wars!
So, overall, the time of the elves lasts a very,
very long time, and it actually lasts longer than this, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Now, I want to, of course, give you all as many details as I can while keeping this in a relatively watchable format, so what I'm going to do is I will separate this into multiple videos. We're gonna end it here, but stay tuned for the next part where we will cover the famous Crown Wars, and you will get to see what exactly happened that made the Dark Elves be cursed into becoming the Drow.
Oh shit, there's so much more!
And of course, what happened after, including the rise of the humans.
Alright, we gotta keep going. Wait, so this wasn't even the full timeline. This was just over like the course of 10,000 years. Before even the modern era. Alright, well anyway, that was Mr. Rex. That was an insanely good video. So this is a playlist. I guess this playlist is the entire history of the D&D world. So we just watched the first one, the Forgotten Realms. So the next one is the Rise and Fall of the Elves. Then the half-elves, and then more half-elves, and then dwarves, and then the Netheril, I don't know what that is. Then the humans. There's so much! Anyway, 10,000 likes, and we will do the next one. We'll do the elves. All right, 10,000 likes for elves. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you guys. We're doing the full D&D lore dive, deep throat situation. It's gonna be insane. And then I want to do all the specific races. I want to do the Tiamat and the gods and the freaking Raven Queens and Vecnas and all those other goobers that are crawling around here, beholders and succubi, and yeah, there's a lot, and we're gonna do it. There's a fucking lot. So subscribe, we're gonna do some lore diving. Stay weird, man. Like, subscribe, and this video was streamed live on kick.com/Nuxanor. See you there. Stay weird, man.
Store closes in 5. We just need to grab a few more gifts.
Jackpot, that's the one.
Yes. Okay, let's go.
JJ, what? Hey, I made my family disappear.